Buona giornata a tutti, sono Rossi Wolf 89. Siamo nella nostra raccolta recap generale delle mie serie TV preferite e oggi, innanzitutto guardiamo se parte l'audio. Sono sempre alle prese. Prova. Mm, ok, allora. Ehm, Bene, parliamo di Dark. Dark è una serie TV di poi stagioni, quindi lo potete vedere tranquillamente di 3 stagioni, cioè solamente tre, di una puntata che varia tra i 45 e i 70 minuti. E è molto particolare, è anche difficile raccontarlo perché si svolge attraverso, diciamo, un periodo di tempo che possiamo chiamare timeline, dove i protagonisti saltano da un avvenimento all'altro, da una zona temporale all'altra. Eh, quindi diciamo che aspettate un attimo. Quindi diciamo che la nostra avventura si apre in una piccola cittadina della Germania, vicino a una centrale nucleare. Se non sbaglio, il nord Germania, non mi ricordo bene. Dopodiché, allora, in questa cittadina, per avvenimenti strani e oscuri, non si capisce bene chi o che cosa all'inizio, ma vengono rapiti questi due bambini e, eh, dei protagonisti che si trovano in mezzo a questa avventura, non sapendo da dove, da che cosa, così si ritrovano lì per caso. eh, In questa avventura, ricordiamolo, piena di avvenimenti, intrecci, del genere drammatico, thriller, giallo, eh, un po' di fantascienza. E praticamente sì, questi protagonisti si ritrovano a cercare questi due ragazzini in questa catena di eventi misteriosi e oscuri in, in diverse zone temporali. Addirittura diciamo che parte la storia di Dark con l'avventura di questi protagonisti che trovano una grotta e mediante questa grotta riescono a viaggiare nel tempo, cioè cose strane. E praticamente allora qui va bene tutto, ok. Aspetta, vi metto il video.
watching the latest season. So I'm a masochist and thought it would be fun to put some of the biggest events of the entire 3 seasons, starting from the early 1800s to mid-2000s. I was hesitant to call this a chronological timeline since technically some of the events that occur in the 2000s actually occur before events in the 1920s. That's where things start to get complicated. So to make things easy, we're just going to start from 1822 and work our way up, and I'll provide additional context for some of the more WTF moments. Just note, these are events I deem to be important, and for reasons of brevity, a lot is left out. So if you thought I should have added something, please don't hesitate to leave a comment below. But before we get started, make sure to like and subscribe, and check out my Season 3 Ending Explained video, which will definitely help fill in some of the gaps. The furthest back we go is September 23rd, 1822. Gustav Tannhaus is with his son Leopold and teaches him about the possibility to bring back the dead. You see, Gustav here lost his wife and believes time travel may be the solution to bringing her back. This obsession will work its way to Leopold, who, when he grows up, allows Jonas to use his shop to construct a time machine. For those with keen eyes, in episode 4 of season 3, you can even make out the year 1822 written on the wall of the future bunker, which is all the way in the year 2052 of the alternate timeline, but we are just getting started. Fast forward to 1888, where Jonas and the teens from the end of season 2 have been transported after using the time apparatus just before the apocalypse. They will be stuck here for quite some time, and in September of this year, Leopold is killed by a man known as the Unknown, who we know to be Jonas and Marta's son. Leopold was on his way to send a telegram telling the world that time travel is possible. 2 years later, Jonas and the teens are still working on the time machine, but this is also where Silja has been sent back to, all the way from the year 2053 by Adam. Silja and Bartosz will later fall in love, and in 1904 they give birth to a boy named Hanno. Hanno is an anagram for Noah. Unfortunately, 6 years later, Silja will die in childbirth while having Agnes. In 1911, Hannah is brought to Adam by Eve, causing him to later kill his own mother because she's not supposed to be in this time period, and it might screw up his plan of cutting and destroying the knot. Around 1920 is when Egon Tiedemann is born, and a year later, in June of 1921, young Noah and an older Bartosz work on the cave passage, but young Noah kills him at Adam's orders, because Bartosz has started to lose his faith in Adam's plan. At this point, Noah is fully brainwashed by Adam's plans and doesn't yet know that Bartosz is his father, and that kind of shit happens a lot in this show. Just wait till we get to the 80s. 2 days later, on June 23rd, Jonas wakes up in a wheat field after having traveled through the God particle from the year 2053. Here he meets young Noah and Agnes, and a day later he's taken to Adam, who he finds out is his older self. On the 27th, Noah attempts to kill Adam after finding out his real plan. He learned this after collecting the final pages of the Triquetra book, which he got by killing Claudia in the future. When he tries to shoot Adam, the gun doesn't work. Fate will not allow Adam to be killed here. Agnes takes the gun from Noah and ends up killing him, her own brother, because she so firmly believes in Adam's plan and wants to be a member of Sic Mundus. Jumping all the way to 1942, we have the birth of Claudia Tiedemann, and a year later, Helga Doppler. In November of 1953, adult Helga has traveled from the 80s to dispose of the bodies of Eric Obendorf and Yasin, who were taken from the year 2019. This is also where Ulrich travels back in time and attempts to kill young Helga, believing that if he kills him, he'll never grow up to kidnap his missing son, Mikkel. At the same time, Bernd Doppler holds an investors meeting for the future wind and nuclear plant, and a day later, on November 11th,
Scompaiono
Ulrich is arrested
diverse,
by Egon on
diversi
suspicion that he killed
bambini.
those 2 boys found in the sandpit. On the same day,
E,
old Claudia has traveled back in time to visit
e
aged
praticamente i
Hanno,
nostri
who had hid the
protagonisti
blueprints
vanno
for
in
8
una
years.
zona
On this
temporale
mission, 7 months
diversa
later,
e
in
li
June of
trovano
1954, old Claudia will bury her
grandi
time
e
apparatus with
loro
shrubs so that it can
raccontano
be
che
dug up
gli è
in
successo.
1987 by her younger self. She also visits her father Egon and apologizes to him. He, of course, thinks she's a nut job, but she wanted to apologize because in the future she'll end up killing him. Old Claudia also ends up giving Tannhaus his own book, which explains time theory, a book he hasn't yet written. This was a present given to Claudia in the 80s by Helga. Noah ends up killing Claudia to retrieve the missing notebook pages and finds out that Charlotte is his daughter. Hannah arrives on June 26, having stolen middle-aged Jonah's time apparatus in the year 2020. Here she finds Ulrich in prison, but leaves him there after she finds out he's still in love with Katerina. Talk about stone.
Pubblicità, aspettate,
Stone cold. This is also where she begins her affair with Egon Tiedemann. 3 months later, in September, she finds out she's pregnant with his baby, a baby which will eventually become Silja. This is also the time where the unknown threatens to kill the mayor of Winden unless he grants the permit to build the nuclear plant. After finding out Egon is cheating on her, Doris divorces him and Hannah decides not to go through with an abortion, but we do see a young Helen Abers, Katerina's mother, go through with one. These operations are performed by Mrs. Obendorf, the mother of Jürgen Obendorf. It's pretty quiet from 1954 to 1970. In 1970, we see the births of Ulrich Nielsen and Katerina Albers. A year later, in August of 71, Regina Tiedemann is born, and in the Origin World timeline, we have arguably the most important event of the entire series, the event that started everything. August 11th, 1971 is when H.G. Tannhaus's son and daughter-in-law are killed in a car accident, spurring him to build a time machine which will result in the splitting of the world into two realities. This is also the year Jonas and Marta travel to and successfully stop the crash from happening. 1972 sees the birth of Hannah Conwald, Jonas's mother, and 2 years later, in 74, Tannhaus begins his work on the time machine in the bunker. It takes him 12 years, but
in
Tannhaus
poche
successfully
parole
completes
non
the
è
machine,
una
and on June
serie
21st, 1986, he
una
rips the
serie
world
che
into two
si può
realities. On
solo
October 9th,
raccontare come
1986,
quegli
Mads
altri,
Nielsen,
bisogna
Ulrich's brother,
viverla
goes missing.
perché
He was kidnapped by
c'è
Helga.
tanti
Next month, Mikkel arrives in this world, having
salti
traveled
nel
from
tempo,
2019. This
tanti
is also where
sbalzi
Claudia learns of the
temporali
barrels of nuclear waste stashed in
eh,
Winden caves. On
che
November
è
7th, Mikkel and Hannah meet for the
difficile
first time. They
raccontarlo,
eventually marry and
difficile
become Jonas.
raccontarlo,
Jonas, going from the year
spiegarlo,
2019 to 3 months to
interpretarlo,
1986, and actually sees
e si
Mikkel, but ends
svolge
up not
solamente
bringing
in
him
3
back to the
stagioni.
present, because if he did that, that would mean Jonas would never exist. On November 11th, a young Boris Niewald, also known as Alexander Tiedemann, arrives in Winden on the run from police. He'll later get a job at the nuclear plant welding the door that connects the cave to the plant that contains all the toxic waste. He'll fall in love with Regina and later become the head of the plant. Jonas is captured by Noah and Helga and locked in the bunker, where he's visited by his older self, who plans to fix everything by activating the apparatus and closing the wormhole. This, as we find out, does not work and only ends up with Jonas being transported to the year 2052. 1987 sees the arrival of Peter Doppler in Winden, who will end up marrying Charlotte. Old Egon's investigation into the disappearance of Mads Nielsen leads him to the psych ward, where he eventually finds out that old Ulrich is the same person as teen Ulrich. After Egon brings him a picture of Mikkel, who is alive in this year, Ulrich escapes from the psych ward, where he's later caught by police at the exact same moment the teens from 2020 have transported there using Bartosz's time apparatus, an apparatus he got from Noah, who he's working with. The next day, Egon and Claudia get in a fight, and
Guardiamo
Claudia
quanto
accidentally ends
siamo.
up killing him when he's knocked over into the counter. 3 months later, in September of 1987, the unknown kill old Bernd Doppler to get access to the master key of the nuclear power plant. Katerina shows up here, having gone through the passage at the end of season 2, and is in search of Ulrich and Mikkel. She winds up finding old Ulrich and vows to break him out of the psych ward. The only thing she needs is a key card, and who happens to have one? Her own mother, who works at the ward. She holds her mother at knife point, but ends up getting killed by her. That seems to be a theme in the show. In August of 1993, Regina and Alexander marry, and the next year so do Ulrich and Katerina. 9 years later, roughly around 2003, we have the births of Jonas, Marta, Bartosz, Magnus, and Francesca, with Mikkel being born in 2008 and Elizabeth Doppler in 2011. June 20th is the day before adult Mikkel's suicide. Jonas kisses Marta at the lake, and Ulrich and Hannah kiss, perhaps starting their affair, which is a big plot point of season 1. It's here we learn Mikkel's suicide was a sacrifice, because if he doesn't kill himself, he can't set Jonas on the path that will eventually save everyone. The next day, on June 21st, we get the first scene
Ragazzi, vi ha fatto vedere un po' di interpreti, diciamo, di questa serie TV nei loro spostamenti temporali. Spero vi sia piaciuto, ragazzi. Ciao a tutti da Rossi Wolf 89.